Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something you shared a pitch deck from a company called BeeCharged EV.
That's right.
You were interested in, the whole EV infrastructure scene, maybe finding some new angles, potential growth areas.
Exactly.
So our mission here is to really dig into this deck, pull out the key stuff, and get a clear picture of what they're aiming for.
Absolutely. We're essentially trying to look under the hood of BeeCharged EV, see how they're tackling a really big issue in the EV world.
Okay.
And the deck, well, it jumps right into range anxiety, that fear, of your battery dying. They see it as the #1 hurdle for people actually buying EVs.
Yeah, I saw that.
And the stats they use really drive it home.
Those numbers were pretty striking.
Right.
BeeCharged EV says, 78% of people worry about charging when considering an EV.
Yeah, a huge majority.
And then 65% are specifically anxious about, running out unexpectedly.
Right, the emergency scenario.
And this one really got me. 82% would be more likely to jump in and buy an EV if there were solid emergency options. That's a big psychological barrier, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, even thinking about driving outside the city where chargers aren't on every corner, that little bit of doubt creeps in.
Exactly. And that leads to a key point BeeCharged EV makes. The current fixed chargers, well, they're growing, but maybe not fast enough or everywhere enough to kill that anxiety.
Especially in more rural spots, I imagine.
Definitely. So for a lot of potential buyers, the lack of a safety net for those unexpected moments is a real turnoff.
Okay, so they've nailed the problem, the pain point.
Yeah.
What's the fix? What's the BeeCharged EV solution that caught your eye?
So their big idea is a nationwide mobile EV charging network. Think roadside assistance, but specifically for EVs needing a charge.
Like AAA, but with electrons instead of gasoline.
Kinda, yeah. Instead of a tow, they send a mobile charging unit right to you. The deck highlights a few key things.
Go on.
An average response time, they claim, between 20 and 45 minutes.
Oh.
Nationwide. 24/7 support, phone, or app. And crucially, it works with all EV models.
That compatibility piece is important.
Very. Plus, they have a membership program, and this is interesting. They're really pushing to integrate their service with the actual car manufacturers, the OEMs.
Ah, okay, so baked right in, potentially.
That seems to be the goal, a direct hit on that range anxiety problem we talked about.
Mobile charging network. It's definitely an interesting angle. But stepping back, what about the market? Is this actually a viable business idea long term?
Well, the deck certainly paints a picture of a booming market. And they mentioned the Biden administration's goal, 50% of new cars being electric by 2030. That's a huge government push.
Massive target.
And then look at the car companies themselves. Ford, GM, Volkswagen. Together, they've pledged something like $285 billion to EVs.
Wow, $285 billion. That's serious commitment. Shows where the industry is headed.
No question. But like you said earlier, the charging side isn't quite keeping up.
Right, the infrastructure lag.
Exactly. BeeCharged EV says only maybe 15% of the public chargers will need actually exist right now.
Only 15%.
Yeah. And building fixed stations takes a lot of money and a lot of time. Planning, permits, construction. It's slow going.
Which opens the door for other ideas.
Precisely. Alternatives like mobile charging start to look pretty attractive, especially for filling those gaps.
So, big growing market, big infrastructure gap. How big is this mobile charging piece potentially? What's the scale?
They're projecting the total EV charging market to hit $42.6 billion by 2030.
Okay, substantial.
And within that, they highlight the mobile EV charging part is growing at like 37% a year. That's fast.
Very fast.
And they drive home the opportunity by saying there's an 85% gap between the infrastructure we have and what we'll need.
An 85% gap. That's enormous.
It is. Plenty of room for companies like BeeCharged EV to find a foothold, especially for those, unexpected charging needs.
Okay, the potential looks real. Let's get into brass tacks then. How does BeeCharged EV actually plan to make money from this? What's the business model?
They've laid out several revenue streams, which I think shows they've thought about resilience. The core is the emergency charging.
The on-demand call-out.
Right. Starts at $165 per use, they say. Available 24/7 nationwide with that 45-minute response target. That directly hits the emergency scenario.
Yeah, that definitely offers peace of mind. What else?
Then there's the membership program. They have tiers. Basic at $9.99 a month. Premium at $19.99. And then custom enterprise plans for businesses.
And members presumably get perks, priority service.
That seems to be a key benefit, yeah. Especially for premium. It plays into that desire for convenience, avoiding long waits if something goes wrong.
Makes sense. Subscriptions mean predictable income. Now, those OEM partnerships you mentioned sounded really key.
I agree. This feels like a really smart, forward-looking part of their plan. They want to get their service embedded, like, as a standard safety feature in new EVs.
Right from the factory floor.
Exactly. And they see money coming from that in a few ways.
Yeah.
Maybe a cut from each service call, commissions from dealers signing people up, or even bundling it into new car packages.
If they pull that off with major car brands, that could be huge for getting customers and reliable income.
Absolutely. It's a potential game changer for them.
Okay, so emergency calls, memberships, OEM deals,
Yep.
any other revenue streams.
Yep, a couple more. Fleet services custom charging plans for businesses switching their vans and trucks to electric. That's another big growth area.
Logical.
They also plan to sell products directly. Things like portable chargers, emergency kits, range extenders, that sort of thing.
Accessories, okay.
And finally, beta services.
Uh-huh.
Using the info they gather on, like where and when people need charges, that data could be valuable for planning future infrastructure.
Huh, interesting. So quite a few different ways to bring in money. Did they give any indication of how profitable these might be, like the unit economics?
They did touch on that. For an emergency call, they estimate a contribution margin of 41%, which works out to about $67 per call after costs.
Okay.
And for the premium members, they project a pretty strong annual profit, around $340 per member, figuring in the monthly fee and maybe like 1.5 emergency uses per year on average.
So the underlying numbers look potentially healthy, at least based on their projections.
Yeah, the initial math seems promising.
All right, so we know what they offer and how they plan to make money, but this space is likely getting crowded. What makes BeeCharged EV different? What's their edge?
They emphasize a few things. Number one is nationwide coverage. They claim to be the only mobile EV charging service operating in all 50 states right now.
The only one. That's a big claim.
It is. And if true, it's a major advantage over companies that only cover certain regions. It offers a much bigger safety net.
Being the single nationwide provider would definitely be powerful. What else sets them apart?
They also talk about their first mover advantage. They say they've already rescued over 2,000 EVs. That means they've got real-world operational experience, lessons learned that a newcomer wouldn't have.
That operational know-how is valuable, for sure.
And then, circling back to the OEM strategy, that focus on deep integration with car makers isn't something every mobile charger is doing. It could build serious loyalty and recurring revenue.
Right, being proactive about becoming part of the car experience, not just a backup service, that feels strategic. Anything else on the competitive front?
They mention proprietary tech like advanced routing and dispatch software to hit those fast response times, suggests a technology edge.
Efficiency through tech.
Plus, having multiple revenue streams makes them potentially more stable than a company just relying on emergency calls. And finally, they're aiming for strong brand recognition, trying to be the name people think of first for EV rescue.
Okay, taken together, that does sound like a strategy to build a strong market position. So they have this plan, this vision. What have they actually done so far? What's the real-world traction?
The deck gives some numbers. Like we said, over 2,000 EVs rescued already. They do have service capability in all 50 states, apparently.
That's confirmation of the nationwide claim, then?
Seems so. And they've signed up over 1,500 paying members. Plus, they state that 32-minute average response time as a concrete metric shows the system is working.
Those aren't huge numbers yet, but it shows a solid start. Did they provide a timeline of how they got here?
Yeah, they did. They started back in 2020 with a nationwide idea, launched service in California in 2021, then expanded west.
Okay.
Membership program kicked off in 2022, hit 500 subscribers. Then 2023 was when they achieved that nationwide coverage.
So last year, 2024.
That's when they started initial talks with OEMs, launched a pilot integration, which leads us to now, 2025, doing this funding round to really scale up and lock in those big OEM deals.
Okay, it shows a steady buildup. They also had some customer testimonials in there, right? Those can be telling.
They can, yeah. Gives it a human touch. There was Hazel Jenkins, a Tesla owner, said they arrived in under 30 minutes, called it professional and efficient.
Good feedback.
Michael Torres, with a Ford, highlighted the price, said others quoted way higher, but BeeCharged stuck to their standard rate.
Value proposition is key.
And then two members, Parsons William, premium member, Chevrolet Bolt, talked about reliability, and Ariana Green, basic member, Hyundai Ioniq Q5, mentioned convenience and peace of mind.
Hearing directly from users definitely adds weight. So looking ahead now, what are their main goals for the next, say, year or two?
Their roadmap for 2025-2026, they call it Phase 1, has three main pillars. First, seriously expand their service provider network.
More boots on the ground,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. More than double it, aiming for over 5,000 nationwide. The goal is to get that average response time under 25 minutes, plus better training for those providers.
Makes sense. Faster, better service. What's pillar two?
Enhance the tech platform, roll out a new dispatch system, use AI for predicting deployment, figuring out where chargers might be needed before the call comes in,
Ah, proactive positioning. Clever.
and improve the mobile app experience for users.
And the third pillar, I'm guessing OEMs.
You got it. Secure those first crucial OEM partnerships. They're targeting agreements with 2 or 3 major manufacturers, launching pilot programs, and developing maybe white label options that car companies can brand as their own.
So really cementing that embedded service model, did they give more detail on how those OEM partnerships might look?
Yes, they laid out a few possibilities. Could be standard feature on new models, maybe tiered levels depending on the car. They talked about a white-labeled interface, maybe right in the car's main screen.
Integrated into the infotainment.
Yeah, and connected with the car's own systems, or even dealerships offering it as an add-on service.
Lots of integration options. Who are they aiming for first? Which car brands?
Primary targets, Ford, GM, Hyundai, Kia. Secondary targets include VW Group, Stellantis, Rivian.
The big players.
Yeah. And they're also looking at premium brands like Mercedes, BMW, Lucid, even Tesla through potential API links. And commercial vehicles too. Workhorse, Arrival, companies like that.
Ambitious list. They're casting a wide net.
Definitely seems comprehensive.
Okay, since this is a pitch deck for investors, let's quickly cover the ask. How much are they trying to raise?
They're looking for $7 million. It's structured as a convertible note.
Okay.
And they mentioned a valuation cap plus a bonus, like a lower cap, for the first $500,000 invested. Early bird special, basically.
Right, standard practice. So they need cash to fund this growth. Did they show financial projections, expected revenue?
They did. Projections show pretty steep growth across all revenue streams. They see total revenue going from $6 million this year, 2025, up to $80 million by 2029.
6 mammoths to 80 M's in 4 years. That's aggressive growth.
It is. They also project hitting break-even in Q3 of 2026 and being cash flow positive slightly earlier, Q2 2026.
That kind of trajectory, if they hit it, would certainly catch investors' eyes. What about the end game, the long-term exit plan?
They mentioned a few possibilities. Strategic acquisition is one, maybe by a big OEM, another charging company, or a tech firm in the next 5-7 years.
Makes sense.
Or an IPO, going public, once the market's more mature and mobile charging is more established, and maybe another round of funding from private equity later on.
Okay, standard range of options there.
Yeah.
So let's try to pull this all together. After digging through this BeeCharged EV deck, what are the main takeaways for you?
Well, the big one is that they're hitting a real nerve range anxiety head on with this nationwide mobile charging idea.
Yeah, tackling a key barrier.
Their business model looks pretty well-rounded with multiple income sources, emergency calls, memberships, and that really interesting OEM integration strategy.
That OEM piece feels critical.
It does. And their claims of nationwide coverage and having already rescued thousands of EVs give them a potential edge, especially since the fixed charging network is still playing catch-up. It feels less like just a service and more like trying to shift how people feel about owning an EV.
Right. So connecting this back for our listener who's interested in this whole EV space, why is BeeCharged EV and their approach something worth paying attention to?
Because it tackles that core consumer fear that might be holding back faster EV adoption. It's a different approach than just building more stations. It's about emergency readiness.
A different kind of solution.
Exactly. And if they nail those OEM partnerships, if this becomes a standard baked-in feature, that could fundamentally change the game. It makes owning an EV feel less risky, maybe more practical for the average person.
It could lower that psychological barrier significantly.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
It might actually accelerate the shift to EVs in a way that just adding more public chargers alone can't.
That's a really interesting perspective, not just infrastructure, but confidence. Okay, so maybe a final thought then for everyone listening. If this kind of mobile emergency charging does become standard, just part of buying a new EV, how does that reshape consumer confidence? How much could it speed up the transition?
Yeah, and what else might pop up? What other services could emerge around this growing EV world that we haven't even thought of yet?
Definitely feels like we're just scratching the surface of how this all evolves. Food for thought.